A large team of detectives have spent the day examining the scene around Ballybock Bridge in North Dublin.
They were all watching the news.
Discovery was made last night.
They had seen the body parts being taken out of the canal.
Linda was more concerned and more remorseful about what she had done.
There's an incredible night where it's lashing rain and she's in the house. She starts to get this anxiety and panic attack. She went out that night, dug the head up, put it in a child's school bag and took it away.
She went walking with a bottle of vodka and then she went into a field. She was able to identify that that's where she sat for a considerable period of time talking to Farah and drinking the vodka in a very distraught state. She kissed the bag and told Farah she was sorry.
Gardaí believed that is what broke her. Going back, retrieving the head and believing he was talking to her.
Linda bashed it with a hammer to try and destroy it even further. And she set it alight.
We conducted a 2-week detailed search of the area and we never found any part of the deceased head.
Even in the middle of their emotional reaction to what they had done and the drink and the drugs and presumably guilt and all this with Linda seeing Farah's face, Charlotte was saying to her, "It'll be all right, just say nothing, keep quiet."
We let Linda talk and she talked a lot about how it affected her, how she couldn't get the smell of the intestines out of her nose and that she was having nightmares. It was very emotional.
Once they got talking to Kathleen, and despite the fact that she was in absolute close proximity to the killing of Farah and the chopping up of his body, they had no direct evidence against her.
Charlotte refuses to admit anything. She laid the blame solely on her mother.
2 hours before she made an admission.
So the police now have 2 confessions and supporting forensic evidence to back it up, the confessions of Charlotte and Linda, and they are charged. Kathleen at this point disappears.
The fact that Kathleen had literally abandoned the 2 girls didn't go down well with anybody.
It certainly was a big betrayal for the family itself. The mother implicated them or got them involved. And if it wasn't for the mother, they might have never been involved in that.
We were prepared for the trial of Linda and Charlotte the first day, and Linda didn't turn up. We got information that she had gone to Holyhead. She was gone to the UK. I arrested her on the warrant, took her in. She yet again was quite emotional, very apologetic as to the fact that she didn't turn up for the trial. The trial judge, Judge Carney, wasn't best pleased.
Judge Carney was a little bit agitated, particularly the longer the jury was out. And he did make a comment one time to say, you know, that there was children involved in this and more or less to get on with deliver it.
But their sister, Marie, was called to give evidence and did give evidence in what must have been extremely difficult circumstances for her. She, in effect, gave evidence against her sisters and told the court what she had been told by Charlotte, which substantiated Charlotte's confession.
It was a very, very high-profile trial from a media point of view. The media nicknamed the 2 girls the Scissor Sisters after the ban from America, but mainly because of the way that the body of Farah Swallinor was cut up.
After 18 hours of deliberations, the jury of 6 men and 6 women this afternoon found Charlotte Mulhall guilty of murder and Linda Mulhall not guilty of murder but guilty of manslaughter.
Linda was convicted of manslaughter and she received a sentence of 15 years. Charlotte, on the other hand, was convicted of murder and received the mandatory life sentence.
Linda Mulhall is a mother of 4. Her defence team said today that her life has deteriorated since the murder. She suffers significant addiction problems and has attempted self-harm on a number of occasions. In court, Mr Justice Carney said he could not accept that Linda Mulhall was a good mother as claimed by her defence. He said he could not see how a good mother could become involved in such a situation. Both women were refused leave to appeal.
Charlotte Mulhall, people kind of view her maybe as being the darker of the two, but I've always felt quite sorry for her. She had given birth after the murder and before she went on trial. She made no reaction to being sentenced to life, except she leaned forward and asked a question of her legal team and asked, would it be possible for her to have access to her child in custody?
It's tough because you're splitting up, you're separating a child from its mother from the start of life. I mean, there's another price that had to be paid, but ultimately it was decided that there was no normal existence within a prison. No other children, no parks, no playgrounds, and so that had to be the way. But the fact that it was even, considered, I don't think that we'd see the likes of it in other countries.
Kathleen, who disappeared before the trial a second time, having first disappeared to Carlo and then presenting herself to the police, vanished again for the trial and went to the UK.
She'd been there for about 3 years after fleeing the country.
We located her in London. Liam Hickey and other officers went over to London. We had a warrant to arrest her, but she was very, very happy to come back to Ireland with us.
And she was charged in relation to cleaning up the crime scene and obstructing justice.
She was put in custody. She was then held until the trial started.
She was sent to Mountjoy prison in Dublin, where, of course, her 2 daughters were resident, and they met in prison in what can only have been an unusual family reunion, to put it mildly.
There's a lot of people look at me, and I'm not paranoid or anything. They say, oh, there she is, Scissor Sisters' mum. I can cope with a lot in life, but I hate when anyone calls Linda and Charlotte Scissor Sisters, because they're not. They're my daughters. They're not violent. Linda's not violent. Charlotte's not violent. As far as I know, they were defending themselves.
The male inmate. Now, this photograph caused huge unrest within the prison services. The prison authorities were up in arms over it. It led to a massive new clampdown on security within Irish prisons. Charlotte was moved out of the Douglas Centre and moved to Limerick, to the other women's unit.
After her conviction, Linda's brothers, James and John, become involved in looking after her 4 children. Initially, James and his partner take the 4 children. And then John actually takes over that role.
He was arrested and charged and convicted over a number of robberies to try and feed those children. Linda and Charlotte's brother, James Mulhall, was jailed for about 10 years for a horrific knife attack on his then partner.
The only person I can see that had some sanity and empathy and just humanity in all of this was their father, John. For his life to come to an end in the way that it did, it's so sad. He went to the Phoenix Park one night on his own, wrote a will on a 50-euro note and took his life there. Perhaps he couldn't get over what had happened.
The fact that 2 daughters were, at that point, being charged with murder and facing a trial was more than he could cope with.
There are no winners in this story.
I was involved in arranging the funeral for the victim. He was buried in the Glasnevin Cemetery, and there's a group of men dressed in national outfits from Kenya that were present at the funeral, and they filled in the grave with shovels. I don't think the family had the funds to repatriate him. That was something that was inquired into at the time. His wife, Husna, had good English. I spoke to her on a number of occasions. She was obviously bringing up her family on her own in Kenya, and he had contact with his wife and with his mother.
You'd have to wonder after the stabbing if instead they decided to call Gardaí, the outcome would have been very, very different to what actually happened. I mean, they might have been charged with manslaughter, but they might not. They might have got off on self-defense, especially when a picture was painted of Farah of the man he actually was. They chose to do something so gruesome and so grotesque, it shocked the entire country.